Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time around here. And today, to help me with that mission, is the lead author of a new book that we have coming out called The Ancestors Within: Celebrate and Honor Your Sacred Origins. Oh my goodness, Amy Gillespie Dougherty. This is our fourth book in this series. Welcome, girl.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And I'm super excited for book 4. It's been a great climb to the celebrate and honor, right? I mean,
It
from fixing all the
has.
problems to recognizing all the gifts to embracing that connection to now celebrating and honoring. It's just like great climb, great climb.
Yeah, and you had a really big mission for these books and sorting that out, that journey that you're taking our readers on, not only in one book, but from book to book. And let me, you guys, before I forget, let me tell you a little bit more about Miss Amy Gillespie Dougherty. She is a lead author of the Ancestors Within book series and journals, host of the upcoming Ancestors Within podcast and Ancestral Summit, November 7th to 11th of 22. She's passionate about changing the way you experience your ancestors. I can vouch for that. Creator of Irigenics Ancestral Eye Reading and the Ancestral Toolkit, she's setting a bolder course for individuals and families to explore where they come from and what they were born to do. So we're going to ask her about how we can meet our ancestors. Why not start with that, Amy? Tell me a little bit about this journey and really why that's important. Why should I want to meet my ancestors today?
Well, let's start from there because that's really kind of the foundation of all of it. You know, so many well, I was in Africa doing survival skills training for children. And when I came back to the States, I thought, well, what is giving, children and young adults trouble in America? And it was really suicide and self-destructive behaviors. And so much of that comes from self-esteem challenges. And I myself growing up had a lot of self-esteem challenges. And I had this friend who didn't. She just was commanding. I mean, she'd be like, of course my boyfriend's going to buy me a leather coat and I'm going to tell him he's got to buy me a ring if I want to go to the dance with him. And I'd be like, wow, you would like say that out loud? I mean, and I just really started looking at self-esteem from so many angles. Even I had some friends who stayed with me in Africa when they had a new baby. And as she was coming to the part of learning how to talk and walk, when she'd ask for something, she was like, can I please have a glass of water? I mean, she just disappeared. She had this tiny whispering voice. She didn't learn that. She was born with that. And it was like, why does she feel disempowered to ask for things when she's like, a year old? I was like, I know she didn't learn it. And I started looking closer and closer. And really that was where the whole why should we know our ancestors? Because so much of that is ancestral patterning. So much of that is us working through and resolving the challenges our ancestors faced that are born inside of us as we start discovering what we were really born to become.
So these energies in our DNA, we are passed down from generation to generation. Some of these traits, I guess, is one word, but tell me more about that. And, the more I learn from you, the more excited I get about the opportunity for healing. Really, that's what it is for me. But tell me more about that stuff that's passed down. And here we are in the Celebrate and Honor book.
Yeah.
And let me continue this question just a little bit because it's something I've been thinking a lot about. For many of us, when we think about this, where we came from in terms of our
Mhm.
ancestors, we do not have a positive feeling. But this
Right.
book is about celebrating and honoring those sacred origins. So when we flip that switch for ourselves and look at where we came from in terms of celebration, we change the game here
Yeah.
a bit. So tell me more about that.
So you're right on all accounts. We're born with this epigenetic load, which is sort of like our own internal evolution. So if you had ancestors who had trouble with spiders, you may be born with an inherent fear of spiders right off the bat. If I'm born with a fear of snakes, then I'm born with that fear right off the bat, whether I've seen a snake yet or not. So when a snake crosses my path, as it does everyone, it's going to have me go, snake. Well, everybody else is like, yeah, there's a cute little snake over there, right? And so that's when you know you're encountering someone who's got an ancestral pattern going on. And so at the same time, it's a package deal, right? We're not just born with the unresolved traumas. We're also born with the, the unfinished intentions, the wonderful gifts, the sacred gifts from long ago. And every one of us had ancestors on this planet when the pyramids went up. We don't know where our ancestors were. We know because we're here that there is a constant thread going back to the beginning of time. Now, I do something called Ancestral Eye Reading, where there's sort of a treasure map in our eyes, not only of the traumas that are bound to hit our triggers, but also oftentimes this will reveal that we're maybe tied to ancestors from 800 years ago. Obviously, we came through our parents' experience, our grandparents, but some of us are more tied to that long, long, long ago stuff, and some of us are tied to the more recent. This is where you see siblings doing this kind of thing, right? Because one's all caught up in today's politics and today's issues and today's this and that, and the other one's like crafting gold leaf from 1200 BC or something, right? And they're like, whatever, I'm over here doing my thing. We just have different connections, we have different ties, and that's what makes it exciting and interesting and vibrant and every bit of it to celebrate.
Okay, so let's go back to the spider thing for a second. You're saying that overreactions can be an ancestral moment. I want to kind of back you up and pause you there a little bit, because you're giving a gift of awareness to us about this topic. Like if I notice I'm in that, spider, like a total freak out moment, I could just be like, hey, wait a minute. Why am I
Ancestral.
reacting like that? Yeah, tell me more ways to know that I'm in that moment.
Absolutely. If it's weird, bizarre, if it's unique, if it's something people would say only Laura or only Amy, if it's something that went on in our life up to age 8 to 10 that again stands out in the crowd, it's typically ancestral. And the thing is, some people just can't research their stuff. They maybe have a grandparent who was a foundling, maybe they're adopted, and they just don't know. But just like if they have a gift for music, you can know you had an ancestor who trained and developed a musical gift. You can also know if you have an instant reaction to snakes, that you have an ancestor who had some kind of trauma with snakes. And their trauma was probably big, right? Like somebody losing a life, like somebody dying, like, some big thing. In our world, it's not usually as big. It can be. But like all right, too much information, but I have this 3-foot snake in my attic. And one of our authors, the last time I saw the shed skin, it was, like 18 inches, 12 inches. And then I was up in the attic, I don't know, a week ago, and I was like, wow, good diet up here, I guess. As I find this massive skin up there, I'm like, oh, we're going to have to do something about this. And one of my authors said, Amy, there's no way. I couldn't sleep in the house. I couldn't be in the house. I'd have to burn the house down. I was like, that's ancestral. And I said it right in there. I said, that's an ancestral moment. If you have to burn your house down because there's a snake, that's ancestral.
Oh, that's such a great example too. Yes. All right. So with this book series, we cover all kinds of different aspects of ancestral healing. But one of the biggest things for me was understanding that there's healing to be done, even though the people or many of the people in my life may have already passed away. So
Right.
I know for people who do ancestral healing, it's kind of like, well, duh, yeah, you've got these generations behind you, you've got everyone before you, my children, their children. But there was a moment where I had to wake up to the opportunity. And that's why I love the celebration and honor, because these are opportunities we have to really look at that and learn from people who have already passed away or have a deeper understanding about those people. Can you talk about that? And especially because of the adoption issue, there are a lot of people who are like, I don't even know if this is an opportunity for me.
Right. So You really phrased that so very well, and it's very true. So when I, like I said, when I do ancestral eye reading and I'm looking at that treasure map, there's the opportunity for gifts, but there's the opportunity to resolve former traumas. So for example, if you find yourself locked in a room because a door malfunctions, in our ancestors' time, they may have been on a ship or a church or wherever and got locked in. And so you, as soon as you hear that door go click, and how many of our listeners, just when I said click, went, right? That's when you know that's an ancestral moment. If your body's triggered, if you're having a cellular reaction, it's definitely ancestral. But in this day and age, we have cell phones. Not only do we have cell phones, we have escape rooms. We can practice, right? We can practice being locked in and getting out, right? So each time one of these moments comes up, it is an opportunity to resolve it for generations coming in front. And for people who say, well, I don't have any kids, I'm not healing anything for anyone, it isn't really true, because if you resolve an old pattern, let's say from 1755, they had kids who had kids who had kids. You've got cousins out there that you may not even know. And when you heal that trauma, it still ripples out. It's still, for whatever reason, in the super consciousness, in the magnetic forces of epigenetics, it still ripples out. And so as we heal for one, we heal the world, right?
Yeah, this is a big idea. You're transforming energy, you're shifting it, you're showing up differently because you've resolved whatever this issue was coming down the line to you. And then you're right, if it doesn't matter if you have kids or not, everybody in your circle is going to be affected by the energy that you show up with and then radiate out into the world. You changing yourself changes the world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book series is 101 chapters of ancestral experience. So every one of them is a little bit different. Everybody touched on different topics. Some came from a prayer aspect, some came from an artistic aspect, we have two who wrote about autism, we have those who wrote about adoption, we have those who wrote about food and sensory experience. And so there's a world of opportunities in there. And we have a Facebook community, the Ancestors Within community. And we have the Ancestral Summit coming up, as you spoke of, from November 7th to 11th, where there's just podcasts and videos and panels and free giveaways and free online resources. But right behind that, I'm going to start a weekly Ancestors Within on the community, taking them through one chapter exercise each week. That's 2 full years of completely new ways to experience your ancestors.
Wow, that's amazing. Oh my goodness. Okay, so speaking of our co-authors in all of these books, first of all, thanks to everyone who said yes to this project, said yes to Amy, saw her vision. Y'all are magnificent, really world-changing healers, and I'm so honored to be in these groups and in this community. And where else do you get to read a book and then come somewhere where you can get your questions answered, where you can get support, where you can take the conversation the next step? So we'll hook you up down below with the Ancestors Within community on Facebook so that you can pop in there and, you know, enjoy rubbing elbows with our authors. I think that's pretty badass, actually.
You're absolutely correct. And you're right. We have actually 80 authors and artists in our books, 80 individuals who said yes, whose ancestors sometimes gave them a push, sometimes gave them a nudge, sometimes dropped a check, sometimes whatever they did. But I mean, there was some scrambling around of authors at different times. So you knew there was an ancestral push behind it. To pull together this many books inside of 2 years, that is all ancestral support.
And I suppose I would need to vouch for my own with, you know, 35 best-selling Amazon books in 2.5 years. Like,
Right.
thanks for helping me understand that the posse behind me is way bigger than just me. And talk a little bit about leaning back into that and trusting it. How's that been for you on your journey?
Yeah. So, our ancestors are behind us, as you just said, Laura. We are a solid thread. all the way back to our origin. And so we have access to their gifts, their talents, their abilities, some of the unresolved traumas, but add in 80 authors and artists and all those threads going back, and where we interweave, those of us who are related, not related, and don't even know it, kind of thing. But for myself, it's been when the doubt creeps in, I just turn it over to my ancestors. But also, I know from doing this work with ancestors that, when we do something that's good in the world, something that increases joy or love or healthful, wealthful living, our ancestors are back there going, yes. Right? I mean, they are the proud parent, and they're right there. Yes. And I always tell people, if you've had bad ancestor experiences, if you've had some challenges with grandparents or parents or whatever along the way, jump back to the first ones you don't know and love on them and let it just come forward. But they're back there going, yes. And then every time we have a day when something just goes really wrong, and I mean really wrong, self-induced or otherwise, our ancestors are back there going, oh, that was me. 1655, I was on a bridge in Connecticut. 1411, I was being held up by the exchequer, right? They're back there going, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That one's mine. They're looking for us to heal. They're looking for us to be the best reflection of ourselves that we can.
Is there a tip you can give us for when we're having that moment to it's the gift of awareness that you're about to give us? We talked about overreactions, but how can I trust that it was their moment moving down through me, and what can I do about it?
Well, I'm gonna use a quick example. I'm gonna use an example that you and I have actually had, Laura. But first, I'll just say, breathe. Just for 1 second, stop. If you know you are in something that would normally set you flying, there's a 99.99999% chance that it's ancestral. And if it's not ancestral, it's probably cellular. It's something that happened to your mother or grandmother, because women are born with their ovaries intact. So we've been through their actual experiences viscerally as a cell. And so it's either ancestral isn't back in the line, or it's something that went on a little bit closer to home. But we had a moment when we were coming up, might have been the very first titles of the books, and we were going back and forth texting, and I would send you examples and you'd be like, no, what about this one? And then you'd come back and what about this one? And what about this one? And then I was on, like, I don't know, text number 7 or something. And I was like, no matter what, she's not going to like it. I don't even want to send it again. And then I thought, oh, Amy, 3:30, left eye. No matter what I do, it's not good enough for that woman. So I was like, stop the madness, Amy. And so I texted you and I said, hey, can we just let this go today? I feel like we're just working it too hard. And you were like, sure. That's when you really know it was ancestral. You didn't even know anything was going on for me. You had no idea. This was all made up in my little epigenetic world over here, that this woman doesn't approve of what I'm doing. It had nothing to do with you. It was all my own. And so when I'm working with people, I'm like, just when it's something that sends you flying, just stop for a second. Just breathe. Recognize the other person is helping you have this opportunity so you can resolve it. Thank them for that. And then just take a minute and say, how can I change the trajectory? What do I have that my ancestors didn't? They didn't have text. They didn't have online. They didn't have ambulances. They didn't have 911. There's all these things. They didn't have women being able to run their own companies, open bank accounts, not be married, choose to be single adults, choose to be single parents. There's all these things that just were not in the playing field at the time. And so just take a minute and go, ancestral. And, right. And, in doubt, just pick up one of the books.
Yes. So good to remember this. Thank you. I knew you were going to help me and help our listeners too with that moment of very powerful awareness when you can just pause and respond instead of react. It's really kind of a
Right.
life skill in general, right? And a good one. Okay, so we talked about the summit that is coming up. This book is going to be this 4th book in the series is going to be coming out in September. So if y'all are listening to this in 2022, I'm going to tell you a few more details about that in a minute. But do you have anything else going on that you want to let everyone know about?
Oh my gosh, what isn't going on right now? Let's
I
see. So
know.
we have the Ancestral Summit coming up November 7th to 11th. It's going to be at least 80 podcasts covering the 101 chapters and the 104 journal prompts that are activity guidebooks that go along with the book series. There are more than 30 videos. There's more than 100 free online resources. There's giveaways. And it is free from the 7th to the 11th, but there's also going to be some extended time versions coming up. I am working on building an Ancestral Eye Reading app so that people will be able to read their own eyes. And with the summit and everything, it's probably going to be coming up in 23. And then, like we talked about, there's also the Ancestors Within community where you can meet our authors, and they are amazing. They are 80 incredibly gifted people who have said yes and stepped forward to bring in all kinds of unique ancestral tools for those who pick up the books. And they're on Kindle also. So, I mean, it's not like a huge investment. You can invest in yourself with time, and they're just really yummy.
Awesome. Oh my goodness, so many good things. Amy, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here to share it. Thank you for your big vision for this and really for trusting me to help you with the books. Thanks for being here.
You've been amazing. And thank you for you're helping us with the summit as well, for helping us get in front of more people. Um, as you said, when we first met, I was like, how do you feel about ancestors? And you were like, I'm not really sure. And I think now you feel really sure. You're like, I got a sound intro to Ancestors 101. You know, again, if you have any doubts about your ancestral connection, your ancestral gifts, for those of you watching the podcast, this is just such a great time to embrace a whole new way to experience and embrace your ancestry and see how much it's playing in your current life and how much it can. As Laura just said, 2.5 years, 35 bestsellers. I'm over here with 4 books and 2 activity books. All of our authors are 4 books and 2 activity books inside of 2 years. And I mean, you don't crank out 6 books in 600 days without a whole ton of ancestral support behind you. And this could be you. This could be your world when you open to the possibilities of what your ancestors could be supporting for you.
Yes, the opportunities. Oh my goodness, it's magical. All right, you guys. So remember also, you're invited to join our live stream book launch party September 16th, noon Eastern. I'm going to be gathering with Amy and all of our co-authors for The Ancestors Within, the Volume 4, Celebrate and Honor Your Sacred Origins. We're going to be there and they're going to introduce themselves and share their wisdom. And you're going to find that on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. I've got you hooked up down below with that. Also with the Ancestors Within community that you can join on Facebook, so you can get there. If you have heard Amy talk today about something that is making you excited, well, her website is down there as well. Take a click, have a little exploration. Amy is up to some amazing things in the world, and she is very generously there to support you and answer your questions and help you take the next step. So that's there for you. And if you happen to be listening after that date of September 16th, well, get over to Amazon, because that means the book is ready and you can get your copy, and you can get a copy of all of the volumes if you haven't read the prior ones. And we're excited to hear what you think about all of them. And lastly today, remember everyone, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. Thank you, Amy. See you next time,
Thank you,
everyone.
Laura.